On the way home, we felt we had a chance to review the cards before we were born, to invite a big fans.
Act like this and playing with his teeth, getting down on his knees and like kind of hammering it into the whole like wobbly like I'm wearing an ass. Yeah. Small guitar solo. Yeah. No, I never met him.
Oh, and you got it.
Yeah,
So we stayed on the train, admiring the time, as the lights of the city drew near. We drank a little wine. They were blurry and green, outer space in between, with a depth in a form unclear. Then we saw it up ahead, a flickering lantern lit up on the tracks, in the rugs that had covered up the bridge.
So where did you learn juggling?
Well, they taught me this at Camp Winter Rainbow in '89.
That was with Wavy Gravy, right?
Yes, sir.
Cool.
Yeah, I won the hot dog award that year.
The hot dog award? What's that?
I'm not sure. It was some kind of like the most quixotic or fun-loving or crazy, or Trey Cool won it the year before.
No way. Trey Cool is in from Green Day.
Yes.
Yeah, one of our buddies from high school.
Yeah, he went to that same place the year before I was there.
Cool. I didn't realize that.
Oh, you know what?
I didn't know they went to Camp in Rainbow. Yeah.
Yeah, it was nice. I was like the nature walk and pottery guy there.
Huh.
And they taught me how to juggle a little bit and unicycle and do the stilts and slack rope and all that.
Flat rope?
Slack rope.
Like where you're just on the balancing rope kind of thing?
Yeah, it's kind of like tight rope but harder.
Okay. Yeah. Because it's not tight.
Yeah, they were putting the water slide up there that year. They had a bunch of teepees and it's still going, I think.
Huh.
Maybe Ravy's still alive, last I heard.
Oh yeah, cool.
Yeah, that was the same little time period that I wrote the Expedientius Manifesto.
And what's that exactly?
That was that crazy dedication to the whole kind of Rabelaisian list of characters that I invented.
Separate thing from the book, from the Palindrome?
Yeah. Right after I finished that, this thing that I kind of had been planning to do since I was about 5, which was write an epic palindrome.
Mm-hmm.
And right after I finished the Expedientious thing, I started in on that, more or less. And yeah, that was 23 years ago. Some false starts and planning, really the stuff that I have done now. I probably started that when I was about 19 in Europe.
So explain the book. Explain just the basic concept.
Okay, it's a massive kind of canonical prose poem in letter symmetrical palindrome form. In other words, the entire thing is one letter symmetrical palindrome. I like to say, I'm not sure how long it is. It's been through a lot of copying and editing, and I finally got a rough draft done a couple years ago. Finishing up the index and catechism now. It appears to be longer than Moby Dick, definitely shorter than Proust. I'm guessing it's somewhere around Les Miserables type length when it's done. And it's all just this ipso relative, self-contained. The whole thing is about itself. It just analyzes itself and every aspect of itself from every possible angle. There's no overt historical references or proper nouns as such. It's just all self-contained. All the product placement, all the bands and the restaurants and the movie reviews and the haikus and the sonnets and poems. And it's kind of like a canonical scriptural type work, like I said. I'm planning on dividing it all into verses, like a biblical or Quranic type thing.
So it's its own world, basically.
Yeah, completely. It's just like this explosion of language. And a lot of little hidden clues and self-referencing gambits, leitmotifs, and like a lot of questions and answers, sometimes on opposite sides of the thing. Like the Catechism is a really overt example of that. That's a series of like 1,111 answers that are all palindromes, and the questions between them are different depending on which way you're going. And then the thing I call the ring middle index in the middle that I've been working on for the last couple of years is just kind of a breakdown and analysis of the whole entire thing in this particular rhythm. It's kind of hard to describe. You have to see it. Like, that builds toward the middle and then echoes back from there. That whole thing is the middle of the book. So I'm writing towards the middle right now. And it's getting close.
So would you say that it's philosophical in nature?
Oh, sure.
Or parts of it,
That's everything in nature. It's teleological, and I had to study a lot of different disciplines to write in it because I try to touch on everything.
Gotcha.
Without any topical references. Or pop references, but that's one of the dichotomies of it. Like the most obvious dichotomy being that when you look at it, it looks like, I've had people catch glimpses of it and get really scared or upset. It looks like the ravings of a madman. It's like this gibberish chaos, like non sequiturs, verbal flatulence sometimes, and onomatopoeia, and it's like this rant, it looks like. But under all that, it's like a mathematical proof level of symmetry, and there's no flaws. Like, I can't brook any flaws in it because, like a math proof, that one little flaw could upset the whole thing. So what looks like gibberish and chaos maybe on the surface and madness is actually this perfectly symmetrical work of art. And those kind of dichotomies kind of flow through the whole thing. In the sense of, how did I get on that tangent? What was that question you asked?
If it was philosophical in nature.
Oh yeah, I have a list of I wrote down of 21 different seeming paradoxes or dichotomies within it. And that was one of them. That it's all self-referential, but it has to touch on all of history because of the way language is intertwined with history. And yeah, it's philosophical. It's very biological too. I kind of think of it as a living organism. I want it to have a very visceral type impact. Like when I read the rough draft, and I've done quite a bit of important work on it since then. 4 years ago, I put together the rough draft of it and read the entire thing for the first time from front to back of what I had up to that point. And that was the closest I've come, like even beyond Finnegan's Wake or any spiritual text that I've ever read, or even like Whitman or anything, to a literary, like a verbal drug. It just seemed like it displaced time, and I felt nauseous sometimes and disoriented. There's no hook to it. There's no plot or story arc. There's no heroes or heroines. There's no real climax. You could call the middle that, but it's just like this sustained burst that is all supposed to happen at the same time. I like to liken it to, I don't know if you've ever heard this philosophical dicta of like the perfect map of, say, New York City, or let's say LA, Venice, over here. The perfect map would have every detail in life size, every last detail life-size, and therefore we're standing in it, and the map would be useless. And that's kind of how I look at it. It's like a map of itself, but it's too big. Like when you focus down on that one little point, you need to be able to do the impossible, which is see it all at the same time. So the book, in one way, is designed to like save my sanity and get it out of my head, and it's in there somewhere, and it has to come out. But it's also one of its aims. I would like to see people driven mad by it and obsessed with it.
What are the chances that the average reader or any reader that might be interested in alternative reading that challenges their thought processes? What are the chances that they're going to get the gist of what you're trying to get across with it?
Probably zero.
But you think they can get something out of it?
Yeah, it's not for the average reader. It's for that like the fraction of the 1%. Like that. it's for the remnant. It's for like, I mean, people like me. Like I would have been thrilled to find it when I was like when I first discovered Finnegan's Wake or Whitman or Chaucer. It was like that. It was like, holy shit, this is. I mean, whether you can, there's too much in there. It doesn't have a lot in common with Finnegan's Wake, but there is that. There's too much in there for a person to find in their lifetime. There's too many inside jokes. I know there's little references that people will never find, probably. And I just had to, I mean, I'm putting everything I can into it. Just an endless two-way mirror, a maze, flashbacks and echoes, questions asked on one side that are answered on the inverse at the same time backwards. A lot of leitmotifs, a lot of like kind of phony baloney numerology stuff for fun. A lot of prime number references, palindromic primes, in the way that the rhythms are divided up and the verses are going to be divided up that way, like hitting on all the palindromic primes, palindromic numerals. There's a clue to this might be one of the Millennium Prizes. It's a problem concerning the distribution of palindromic primes on an infinite positive number arc. And I kind of started fiddling around with that, and there's hints about that in it, like my attempts to solve that problem. It's distribution of palindromic primes through the book. So yeah, it's not for the average reader. It's for the extraordinary reader. It'll be a rare thing for someone to actually make it through the whole thing. I mean, I find it very compelling. Obviously, I'm the only person that's read all of it. I've read all of it in my head and out loud at this point.
Basically, it sounds like it's kind of the sum total of everything you could find within your own mind and get it down on paper, more or less.
And like I was saying, I think I started to say, like, I had to study a lot of different disciplines and get interested in a lot of things because of all that it touches on. Like, primarily, I would say philosophy. There's a lot of biology in it. It acts as an organism. There's a lot of, like, ingestion and excretion and reproduction, and it has a very visceral type impact that way. Like, you can almost smell the page sometimes. A lot of cosmology, a lot of like Big Bang, end times, like why is there
physics.
something instead of nothing? Physics, astrobiology, and etymology of stuff also. Just every single point in the book is attacked and kind of examined under a high-powered microscope or telescope from every other point. So every point in the book is that important. It has ramifications. You can't edit that out or parse it in any way. Every letter in the book, probably more so than any literary production in history, has to be there.
Because it's a palindrome.
It's pointillism. Like that's why I have something north of 30,000 hours into this thing. And I do a lot of like lucid dreaming about it, thinking about it, and like I said, for the last 4 years I proofread the entire thing letter by letter, tweaked it, added things, corrected errors, shoehorned stuff in, and it all remains symmetrical, or it will when it's done. It's still kind of in chunks and pieces, and so the final edit process is coming up soon. Finish these last 2 sections,
and basically, I think it's safe to say that this will be the longest palindrome ever, and probably will never be broken.
I know, it's by far and away, and not only is it far and away, it's beyond anything. See, I'm Joe Schmo in the palindrome world. Like, they had the championships a few months ago, and I mean, they've never heard of me. There's a Palindromics magazine. I've never published it or contacted them. I'm just kind of starting to tell people about it. And the stuff that's out there right now, what I'm doing is orders of magnitude beyond it in complexity and length. There's no computers used. It's just pen and paper and head and sometimes scissors and paste. None of it's digitized yet. It's just a full chaos of notebooks, and I know it's all going to work out. Like, I mean, it's incredibly difficult, but I know I'm closing in on it. Like I can sense that and like see
the finished product.
It's not perfect yet, but it will be.
Yeah.
And
Awesome.
it's kind of a holy book, I guess. It's a bastard of a prose poem. I would like it to turn into something like a holy book, like that you would cite, the reference. You can cite the verse.
The people will kind of ponder throughout their life and try to make sense of it and
then
have their own interpretation.
Ideas I came up with, all the ancillary stuff and offshoots of it came out of the original idea. After I've been working on it for about 16 or 17 years, I started developing these other, like that's where the cookbook came from, and the alphabetic bestiary, and the koan calendar, and the puzzle idea, the ibophobia I call it, the puzzle cartoon, and a whole lot of fun stuff.
Yeah.
It all came out of the big thing.
From the banks of the river to the bed of the valley upstream to the place where you live.